Good morning and welcome. My name is Nick Cornish. I'm Austrade's Chief Digital Officer and Head of Digital Strategy and Architecture, and I'm delighted to be facilitating today's Free Trade Agreement webcast, where we'll be talking about innovating export channels, digital trade and online marketplaces. It's so wonderful to see so many of you online today, with businesses joining us from right across the nation. We've received over 700 registrations, so it's fantastic to see such interest in this topic. While I'm in Canberra, where the traditional owners are the Ngunnawal people, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of all lands on which we gather in Australia and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend those respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people who've joined us on the webcast today. Today's the 8th FTA webcast in a series of 12, designed to keep you connected and informed. So why do we continue to tell the FTA story? Well, FTAs help exporters to be more competitive. They ease regulations and they offer market certainty for businesses trying to expand overseas, whether that be through traditional export methods or new and emerging trends across digital trade. The focus on digital trade for this webcast, today we've brought together experts who are going to talk about how FTAs support digital trade, the current trends and strategies, choosing the right platforms, and first-hand experience selling online in Southeast Asia and China. We'll hear from Alexandra Dawes. Alex is the Director of Digital Trade in the Regional Trade Agreements Division of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. We'll hear from Jack Liu, Senior Advisor for E-commerce at Austrade, and also Hawk Liang, Global Export Director, H&H Group, Swiss Wellness. The full bios of all the speakers are available on the platform if you'd like to learn more about them. Before we get into the really interesting content, I've got a few helpful technical housekeeping items for you. You'll see on your screen a number of boxes that you can move around and make larger and smaller. The arrow icon on the far left refreshes your screen if you get stuck. The person icon's got those bios of the speakers I was mentioning. There's also a Q&A box. So we'll try to address as many of your questions as we can in the time available. You've all been put on mute automatically, I'm afraid. However, if you do experience any technical difficulties or you need help, type IT help in the QA box so one of our technicians can help you out. Now, one thing we can't help with is your internet connection, but this event is being recorded. So if we lose you, the content will be available on Austrade's FTA seminar page later today. There's also a very short 30-second survey accessible at any time throughout the webinar, so please fill it in before you leave the call. Okay, let's get into it and welcome our first speaker. Exporters may think that digital trade rules are only relevant to companies like Amazon and Google, but in fact, rules on subjects such as cross-border data flows are critical for supply chains and trade across all goods and services in a digital age. To explain more about how digital trade rules help businesses, I'm very pleased to welcome Alex Dawes from DFAT. Over to you, Alex.
Hi, thanks Nick, and thanks to Austrade for organising this event and for everyone who's joining today. As Nick mentioned, my name's Alex Dawes. I'm the Director of DFAT's Digital Trade section. So my section is responsible for negotiating digital trade agreements and digital trade chapters in FTAs. So most recently, my team negotiated the Australia-Singapore Digital Economy Agreement that was just signed by ministers in August. And today I've been asked to give a brief overview of the digital trade rules we negotiate through our FTAs. So what is digital trade? I thought it would be worth touching briefly on what we mean by digital trade in the FTA context. So in addition to buying and selling goods through e-commerce channels, which I think is the first thing that most people think of, digital trade also includes digitally enabled services like online education, and electronic facilitation of trade through things like rules around acceptance of electronic trade documents. So it also includes transmission of data across borders, both to support business activities and as a commodity in itself. So you can see from this definition that digital trade rules underpin supply chains around the world, and that almost all forms of trade would have some digital element, whether they're delivered traditionally or online. The digital trade rules we negotiate in FTAs aim to support digital trade by putting in place rules and frameworks to provide certainty, stability, and to build trust in the online environment. So Australia has included some form of e-commerce or digital trade rules in 14 of our 16 current FTAs. Our approach is based on broad principles about non-discrimination and technological neutrality. As you'd expect in this really quickly evolving area, our approach and that of our partners has changed over time. So the best example of where our current thinking is at on digital trade rules is in the recently signed Australia-Singapore Digital Economy Agreement. It's our most ambitious digital agreement to date, and we see it as a benchmark for other agreements going forward. So the first of those main areas of rules I'd like to highlight today are those on data, since that affects all sorts of trade. So our aim is in these rules is to avoid data localization requirements that can be hidden forms of protectionism. We achieve this through including commitments on allowing cross-border transfer of information and to prohibit unnecessary data localization requirements, which we're seeing a bit more of around the region and which you might have heard some talk of already or even encountered in your work to date. So these rules are really important because data localization requirements can mean high costs for businesses. It can mean they need to set up local storage facilities in every market they operate in. They also make it difficult for international businesses to operate efficiently if they can't transfer data across borders. We were really happy in the Singapore Agreement that we negotiated rules to apply these data rules to financial services, and that was only for the second time in our FTA practice. The first time was in the Hong Kong Free Trade Agreement. Next slide, please. The next area I'd like to highlight are rules that facilitate trade by digital means. So these include commitments on acceptance of electronic trade documents, such as certificates of origin. So electronic acceptance and availability of these documents obviously speeds up the movement of goods across the board. We also negotiate other rules that help to facilitate trade, such as rules on acceptance of e-signatures and other forms of e-authentication. And in the Singapore Agreement, we negotiated rules on the acceptance of e-invoicing and e-payments for the first time. So these rules try to focus on ensuring that we've got compatible systems, so cross-border trade is more seamless for business and you don't have problems with e-payment systems not working across borders. Next slide, please. So the next area to highlight is what we call the trust articles in our FTA, in our digital trade rules. So without trust in the online environment, as you know, digital trade just isn't possible. It's why we include rules to ensure that consumers are more confident shopping online or using online services. So in our agreements, we include commitments on consumer protection, on protection of personal information, and rules to regulate how spam operates. And in the Singapore Agreement, we also included for the first time a commitment on creating a safe online environment. Next slide, please. So the last area I'd like to highlight is the cooperation provisions that we typically include in our digital trade chapters. So again, in the Singapore Agreement was our most ambitious agreement to date in terms of cooperation. It included commitments on a really wide range of issues, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, fintech, digital identities, international standards, and data innovation. So these provisions go beyond digital trade into broader digital economy issues and really shows the level of cooperation we have with Singapore and that we're trying to build with like-minded partners around the world. Next slide, please. So our future outlook on digital trade negotiations is positive in both bilateral and multilateral fronts. I just wanted to highlight a couple of negotiations that are ongoing. So we're currently negotiating digital trade chapters as part of our FTA negotiations with both the EU and the UK. So in each of these negotiations, both sides have said that they want to see higher levels of ambition on digital rules. So these two negotiations are at quite different stages. So the EU has had 7 rounds of negotiations so far, whereas the UK is only just starting. We've had 1 round of negotiations so far. And then I just wanted to highlight as well, so in addition to being a leader through some of our bilateral digital agreements, Australia is also leading work on developing the first set of global digital trade rules. We're currently chairing the WTO e-commerce negotiations. Next slide, please. So that's all I have time to discuss today in this very brief overview, but just want to highlight that there's a lot more information on the DFAT website, both about our trade rules and about negotiations more generally. Because I'd just also like to put in a plug because we have several calls for submissions that are currently open. We have ongoing calls for submissions for both the EU and the UK negotiations. We particularly want to hear from Australian businesses about any barriers to entry that you face in either market, and then we can see if there's a possibility to address those barriers through the negotiations. The Singapore Digital Economy Agreement that I've talked a lot about this morning, it's currently tabled in Parliament and is going through a treaties making process. And part of that process is a call for submissions on the agreement, and that call is open until 18 September, so you can read the full agreement, and we encourage people to make submissions if they have comments. So again, I'd like to thank Austrade for the opportunity to talk to you today, and I'll hand back to Nick.
Thanks, Alex, for outlining so clearly how the FTA supports digital trade. It looks like we've got quite a few questions that have come through with a bit of a common theme. So, Alex, while I've got you in the spotlight, I thought I'd put a few of these questions to you. Look, the first one is, how do we find out what stage negotiations are at for new FTAs, and how can industry have an input?
Right, thanks. So I think I've touched on this already, but I definitely recommend the DFAT website as the best starting point for information about our FTAs. We have dedicated pages for each of our negotiations. So you'll find a page on the EU negotiation, on the UK, for example. And we put updates after each round of negotiations. We put updates about where the negotiations are up to. That's also where you'll find information about making submissions. So how can industry have input? So submissions are certainly a great way to do that. They can be either public submissions or confidential ones. Public ones are fantastic because it helps us to demonstrate our stakeholder interests, both to our negotiating partners and as we go forward. But we understand there's sometimes confidential issues, and we're happy to either discuss or keep submissions confidential on that.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Alex. Another one for you. What's the status of the WTO negotiations?
Right. I can understand this question. The WTO can be quite hard organisation to understand exactly what's going on sometimes with so many partners involved. So basically, the WTO negotiations are progressing reasonably well. Like everything else, they've had to adjust for the COVID-19 environment. So physical negotiations have been replaced with virtual negotiations since April. And as I mentioned earlier, Australia's taking a leading role in the negotiations. We're trying to get high quality outcomes that build on the existing WTO agreements and frameworks. But we also want to make sure we can include as many members as possible. So the negotiations currently include 85 members. We've just included, so they just went up by one, with Guatemala just joining the negotiations. So through the negotiations, we want to shape the global digital trade rules for the same reasons that we do in our FTAs, to promote predictability, interoperability and trust, and to lower costs for businesses and consumers. And so the digital trade rules I outlined earlier are all within the scope of a potential e-commerce agreement. And we've heard from Australian stakeholders that issues like data flows, data localization, consumer protection, privacy, and e-transactions, such as e-signatures, are all priority areas. But obviously all 85 members have their own priorities. So we're working to try to keep as much ambition, but keep the initiative as inclusive as possible.
Terrific. Thanks, Alex. Another question for you. Aren't there exceptions to the data rules?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So in our FTAs, we include exceptions to the data rules and to other rules in our digital agreements. So in our FTAs, we apply general exceptions and that come from the GATT and the GATS, and that's the WTO agreements on goods and services trade. So these include exceptions for areas like national security and to allow governments to regulate other key areas of public interest, such as privacy and health or prudential regulations. So in terms of the data rules, we also don't apply these rules to information held by the government. So that's because we want to protect the ability of the government to have data localization requirements for sensitive areas like My Health Records or most recently the COVID Safe app. We also have some carve-outs for other government policies such as the FIRB rules on foreign investment, as you would expect. So that's not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of the sort of exceptions that we apply, and it's mostly just to preserve policy space for the government on those sort of key public interest and national security issues.
Terrific. Thanks, Alex. Look, we've got a couple of moments left. So, look, do you have any final tips for our audience?
Right. Well, I think in terms of trying to understand whether the FTAs will be more helpful, I think I'd always give a plug for trying to keep up to date on the DFAT website. And then I think our other speakers today will we'll hopefully give some more practical tips on negotiating those e-commerce areas. I think DFAT's role is really trying to set an enabling environment and to get rid of some of those kind of regulatory barriers, and so everyone starts on a level playing field.
Wonderful. Look, thanks again, Alex, for all your insights. I'd like to now welcome our next speaker,
Thanks,
Jack Liu, who's Austrade's Senior Advisor for e-commerce. Jack's going to take us through an overview of cross-border e-commerce and talk to us about some key trends and strategies. Welcome, Jack.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Jack, and as introduced, I'm the Senior Advisor of e-commerce for Austrade. And my role has been focusing on helping Australian exporters to find new markets through online channels. Next slide, please. Firstly, let's look at some of the opportunities and trends in global e-commerce. As you can see from the chart from eMarketer, in 2019, the e-commerce retail sales has reached 3.36 trillion USD dollars, and it's forecasted that in 2020 the volume will go up to 3.9 trillion at the end of 2020. As you can see from the red dots, and the red line shows the percentage change each year of the e-commerce growth. And you can see that the speed of growth has decreased due to the damage caused by the pandemic. However, you're still looking at a double-digit year by year in the next 4 years, which is quite impressive due to the if you look at other damage caused by the pandemic. On the other hand, if you look at the blue dots and blue lines, which shows the percentage of e-commerce sales as a percentage of the total retail sales, you can see it's still growing significantly in the next 4 or 5 years. You can see on 2023, it's forecasted that 20% of the retail sale will happen online, which means that 1 out of every 5 retail transactions will happen online, which means that this will definitely show a good trend, a good strength of e-commerce purchases amongst the consumers. Definitely, the COVID-19 has fast-tracked the consumer adoption of e-commerce because of the lockdowns. Next slide, please. Some of the trends that we are seeing from our exporters communities includes a lot of brands have told us that it's a very good period to increase your brand loyalties during this period. Due to the lockdowns, which are similar to some of the cities in Australia, a lot of consumers are restricted to go to retail stores and are forced to purchase things online, which means they're open for new options. And for brands that can offer seamless transaction experiences, it's really a good opportunity for them to build brand loyalties during this time and to drive repeat business. The second point is, as from a consumer's perspective, consumers are spending a lot more time on social media apps such as Facebook, Instagram, and especially for KOLs and live streamings are being popular amongst the viewers. According to some marketing surveys, the know-how and how to use product videos demonstrated by KOLs and live streamers are particularly popular amongst the viewers. Also, the spending habits has changed due to the COVID-19. Consumers are more cautious on buying high-valued products, such as luxury products and high-end fashion. However, there are strong growth on comforting purchases, such as for home use and self-use products, as well as gifts. And also, online grocery has been growing, in some cases, doubling in the past 3 months. Next slide, please. Now, when we're looking at where are the online shoppers around the globe, as you can see from the map, the bigger the circle is, the bigger the retail e-commerce sales is. If we look at from a regional perspective, APAC obviously has the largest e-commerce markets because of China and India being two of the largest e-commerce markets around the globe. The next region is North America, with America being the second largest e-commerce market, as well as Canada being really strong in the region as well. The next region will be Western European, where you have some of the strong markets such as UK, Germany, and France, who are traditionally very strong in e-commerce, and the local logistics and tax systems are well established. Also, other regions, including Eastern and Central Europe, Latin America, Middle East, and Africa also growing really fast, but at the moment not very popular for Australian exporters. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of how to reach your online shoppers, to date, the two most popular ways are A, setting up a shopping cart on your own website and selling directly from your website. And the other option is selling through on online marketplaces such as Amazon, Tmall, or eBay. As for 2019, I believe about 52% of the transaction happens on online marketplaces. Also, there's also a passive option to sell to a retailer that has online capacity and can help you to set up online presence in one of the markets. However, one thing to watch out for is the skill set for selling offline comparing to online is very different. So when choosing a partner or retailer, it's really important to understand and do your due diligence on whether your partner has the capability to sell online. Next slide, please. Now, this map shows some of the marketplaces in each of the markets. As you can see, we've got, apart from some famous marketplaces such as Amazon, eBay, which operates in multiple markets, there are also local heroes of marketplaces in some markets such as Tmall in China, Lazada in Southeast Asia, and Flipkart in India. So it's very important to do some research and understand who are the local marketplaces in each of the marketplaces and to decide which distribution channels you want to choose. Next slide, please. Now, some high-level tips for you to think when you are designing your online exporting strategy includes regardless if you're selling through a marketplace or through a retailer, it's always important to build a well-designed website with really good digital content, because your consumer always wanted to hear directly from you, and your website is one of the best communication channels with your consumer for them to understand a little bit more about your brand stories, your product, how to use information, and a little bit more about your products. So that's why make sure that you have a good design website, as well as it's mobile friendly when consumer trying to find you. The second thing is learn how to drive traffic to your site. Social media is a very important part of e-commerce sales, and learn how to leverage from these social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, as well as some search engines such as Google to drive traffic to either your site or your product listing on marketplaces. Is very important to increase your brand exposure to your online shoppers. Also, it's important to understand the regulatory requirements and register IP when you are selling online, especially in markets that have first file, first use rules, where whoever registered the trademark get to use the trademark first. In those markets, it's very important that you register your trademark before you actually start selling in that market. The next thing is, before you're starting to any of the markets, be sure that you should do some online research before you put in any investments. One of the beauty of e-commerce is a lot of the information is actually transparent online. Doing some research on the local marketplaces such as Tmall in China will help you to identify your competitors in the market, their price point, a benchmark of selling volumes, and sometimes it surprises a lot of our exporters that their product is already selling in the market without their knowledge. So that understand whether you've already got some presence in the market. It's also important for your strategy thinking. The last thing is to understand your online sales cycles. It's very important that you understand how to the operation flow of the e-commerce sales, which includes promoting your product at the start, having a good and detailed product information on your page, converting sales and collect payments, deliver your product to your consumer, as well as have a good strategy on your return policies, and then collect feedbacks from your consumers and have that ongoing relationship with your consumer. And based on the feedback, try to do some adjustments on your product and then put those adjustments to promotion and do that cycle again. So that's why it's important to understand your online sales cycle and run that operation throughout your strategy. Next slide, please. Now, apart from some of the points that I've just spoken before, we've got a lot of online tools that help you to gather information and have some tips from other speakers as well. Through the past 3 months, we've run about 15 webinars like this, interviewing some of the global e-commerce players such as Alibaba Group, Amazon, and Facebook. All these webinars are recorded, and we've created a e-commerce landing page, which is austrade.gov.au/e-commerce. We have all the webinars recording, as well as a guide to online exporting, which have detailed explanation of the sales cycle and all the points that I've talked before, as well as 11 country reports, which dive deep into the know-hows in each of the countries where you want to sell. And also we have links to some of our partners' content as well, which will be shown in the next slides. So apart from some of the Austrade's resources, a lot of the e-commerce companies have a lot of good information available online for you to research and study as well. These platforms include Facebook Blueprint, Google Digital Garage, Shopify's Selling Center, as well as depending on which marketplaces you want to work with. Most of them all have very good selling centers to help you to understand how to list on marketplaces. Now, talking about marketplaces, can we move to the next slide, please? To help you understand some of the local marketplaces, we've listed some of the popular marketplaces in different regions, including Lazada in Southeast Asia, some of them Amazon marketplaces, eBay, and some of the popular marketplaces in China, such as Tmall, JD, and Koala, as well as Rakuten in Japan and Shopee in Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Brazil. Of course, if you are looking at markets beyond those markets, feel free to contact us or go to our e-commerce landing page to find out more. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's it from me. Again, for more information, please visit austrade.gov.au/e-commerce. And that's my presentation. Now I would like to invite Hawk from H&H Group to give us a live case study from their experience. Hi, Hawk. How are you?
Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone have a good day. My name is Hawk. I come from H&H Group. And I'm working on the export channel development for the group brand that's based in Australia. And then our target market include China, Southeast Asia, Korean, and recently we're exploring the export channel into Middle East and Africa.
Thank you, Hawk. To start with, can we give a quick introduction of H&H Group and some of the experiences you have exporting online?
Yeah, sure. So would you, next slides. Yeah, so our group company, mother company is the H&H Group. This is a Hong Kong listed company with 6 brands. So we have Swiss and Bao's Times. We also have Dodi, Healthy Time, Good Good, and Aurelia in our group brand family. So most of you know about the Swiss. Swiss is one of the leading VMS brand in Australia, and Swiss also the #1 VMS in China and have been ranking #1 in all the e-commerce platform in China in VMS category. And we also launched Swiss in normal trade in China since 2017. And personally, the people who launch Swiss in China normal trade, and also build and develop Swiss export channel in China and in Australia since 2016. And we also launched Bao's Times baby nutrition in 2019, and I built a domestic and the export channel for the Bao's Times launch in Australia. And it's very interesting that although this year the COVID posed a lot of challenge for our business, but in our export channel, including Swiss and the Bao's Times, we get a quite good growth from the e-commerce growth after during the COVID period.
Thank you, Hawk. It's very impressive to be #1 health category in China. Can you please share with us some of the experiences you have when selling online in China and perhaps the journey of it?
Yeah, sure. So Swiss in China is very interesting. From when I joined the company in 2016, basically we don't have any investment, any active investment, any active distribution in China. But by then, we're already close to the number one, #2 BMS brand in China. How we make it? So you can see several pictures here. This is the very typical picture that I take 4 years ago in Australia. So we saw all the Chinese daigou in pharmacy and the gift shop, and they shopping the product by basket, by whole cart, and when they buy the product from pharmacy, go to the gift shop and pack and send the direct parcel from here back to China. And how do they market our brand? You see, WeChat and Taobao is the 2 major marketing channel at that moment. All the daigou have their WeChat account. They will post the product knowledge, product benefits, product uniqueness in their WeChat account. And if the people saw the product message from their WeChat account, they can place an order. And also, they also build the Taobao shops for us. It's not only they at that time we don't have any active investment there, but there's about 100,000 daigou. Those daigou perform the role as a sales agent and also a marketing agent. So they perform as a 100,000 sales team member, sales agent and marketing agent for us. That's how we come from from 0 to 1 in China. Next slide. And since I am on board in China, Swiss China, we start the active expansion in China. I just list all the most of the key e-commerce platform in China, so you understand the complexity and the volume of China e-commerce. So most of you know Alibaba. We have Tmall, Taobao, and Kaola there. And there's an independent platform like PDD, JD, VIP, and community-based platform like Yunji and Onion. Social media-based platform, you can sell product in TikTok in WeChat. And we have Red, so it's a social plus a review plus an e-commerce website. Very interesting business model. And there's also different type of vertical e-commerce platform. At least the Hi-Pike, Mia, and the Bay shops here. This is the baby and mom nutrition-based website. But you can find a lot of different type of vertical platform in different category. So the e-commerce platform expansion, you need to talk to different type of platform, have a different product portfolio, pricing strategy, and business plan for different type of e-commerce platform. So from 1 to 10, we expand to the platform, different type of platform, and also expand to the brick and mortar channel since 2017. And covering, the pharmacy channel, baby and mom channel, supermarket, hypermarket channel, and also the cosmetic channel since the launch. So from 0 to 1, we leveraged all the KOL, KOC Daigous, and from 1 to 10, we do the active distribution to penetration to different channels.
Thank you, Hawk. That's definitely a very inspiring experience that you're sharing with us, especially with so many platforms available in China. And also, in terms of diversifying the market a little bit, you mentioned that Swisse is now in Southeast Asia as well. Could you please share a little bit experiences or tips for how Swisse has penetrated the markets in Southeast Asia?
Sure. One of the most biggest challenge or complexity for the VMS expansion is really the regulatory. Every country have a different regulation for the VMS. So the way that we expand the market is we taste the water through the seabed channel. This is the first thing, and then the second thing is about the Daigou. So we know, all of us know there's a huge amount of Chinese Daigou, but do we know that there's also a huge amount of the Indonesia Daigou, Malaysia Daigou, and the Vietnamese Daigou. So who are those Daigou? They're the students, they're the travelers, they're the people, immigrate from their home country to Australia. And their friends and their relatives are still very interested to Australia product. So they perform a role as introducing Australia product back to their home country. So we know Chinese Daigou, but we also know that the huge amount of the Daigou from Southeast Asia, even Korean. So we replicate the success story in Southeast Asia. We start the Southeast Asia e-commerce export channel development since 2019 because I moved to Australia 2 years ago. And we used basically almost the same model. So content creation, starting from content creation, this content creation is very much product focused and very social media focused. The creation is based on the product and based on the consumer insight, what the benefit that the product can bring to the consumer, and build into a local language, Vietnamese and Indonesian local language, which will be a very important starting point. And then we also organize some offline event. The offline event will be for the photo I show here is the Vietnamese Chinese New Year events in Sydney. We invite several key Vietnamese opinion leaders based in Sydney to that event and introducing our VMS product, Chlorophyll product in that event. And then through the event, we know several KOL, KOC, and we work together with them, to build the content and release content in their social media accounts. And then after they release the platform, our distributor, they can convert directly from their social media account, Facebook, TikTok, directly to the website. So you see the whole thing happened. For the first step, happened in Australia, and working with the local community, Vietnamese community, to complete from the brand awareness, product awareness, all the way to the sales conversion. So it's not that complex. As long as you start the implementation, you will find, there's a lot of resource available in Australia. As long as we know that we need to how to implement through the process, how to create the content, the sales will come very soon.
Thank you, Hawk. I like your. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yes, this is what we do in the early this year and the second half last year. But after we do the first step, we start the second step, immediately. So next slides. So we know that Southeast Asia have a huge e-commerce platform. I just put the data here. So FY19, Alibaba GMV is about $850 billion US. But the Southeast Asia, 6 countries, the e-commerce GMV is only about 30 billion. So it's only 4%, less than 4% of Alibaba. But think about the population. Chinese population is 14 billion. Southeast Asian, as a total, the population is more than 6 billion. And the newborn baby every year, in Southeast Asia is much bigger than Chinese newborn baby. So you see the potential of this channel. So we start the penetration into different e-commerce platform, and Jack already listed here. We have a regional player, Lazada, Shopee, and also some country player like Tiki in Vietnam, Tokopedia in Indonesia, Buka in Indonesia. They're also quite big. And besides the e-commerce expansion, social media expansion, because of the Daigou model, is also one of our focus. Facebook, WhatsApp, WeChat, they can be the sales channel and also the marketing channel. And we'll also see the social selling networks expanding very soon.
Thanks, Hawk. I really liked your comment when you say it's not complex at all, and once you get a handle of it. And definitely from my perspective, I think really important for you is to manage your sales channel, to have a good content, and to have good social media promotions as well. Now, given your extensive experiences in so many countries, can you please share with us some of the opportunities and challenges of e-commerce where you think it's important when you think about selling online?
Yeah, sure. Next slides. First of all, I want to focus on the opportunity. Opportunity, as I said, that's e-commerce will continue the strong growth, no doubt. I think everyone have the same belief. That's why we're here. But compared to the Alibaba is the whole Southeast Asia e-commerce are only 4% of the Alibaba. So see the magnitude and the huge potential of the e-commerce. And also as an Australia product or Australia brand made in Australia, we carry the Australia the hello. That's the Australia represent the natural health, clean, and high standard especially in the Southeast Asia. So as an made in Australia product, you get some natural benefit or natural brand equity from the country. And also opportunity for us is a low entry cost. I think the low entry cost means a high profitability. We have operated the normal trade in China for almost 4 years, and we hardly break even in this year. So we continue to invest in the normal trade. But from the day one, we started the e-commerce or cross-border e-commerce. It's become a high profitable channel, and all the investment is manageable. So basically, we know from social media, from the KOL, how much we invest and how much sales we can return, and we manage the investment based on the sales, not based on the big fixed investment even before I got the sales. So relative low entry cost compared to other channel and high profitability. And from distribution perspective, you can quickly build a distribution network. You don't need to have a team in the field. In Vietnam, you need to spend invest in 10 people visiting 1,000, 2,000 stores. You just make the e-commerce happen based in Australia. With the team based in Australia, you can start the distribution and even have a broad distribution across the country in the e-commerce platform. But there are also several challenges. So first of all, is this e-commerce is a constant evolving channel. So the learnings that you built in 2 years ago, for example, for Chinese, the Daigou and the e-commerce, what you learned 2 years ago totally changed this year. With all the COVID situation, platform growth, new e-commerce ecosystem, totally changed. You can't sitting on the what you have learned in past 12 months. You have to constantly understand what's the change, learn from the what change, and adapt your business strategy. It doesn't like the same strategy that we can work on Coles, Woolies, Chemist Warehouse for 10 years. It doesn't work in the e-commerce side, especially in China and Southeast Asia e-commerce area. Those countries are the emerging country, especially when the e-commerce growth 1,500% a year on year. You can expect the significant change every year. And which will also lead the supply and demand planning because of the change. So the whole it will be difficult to have an accurate forecast. So in our case, the supply and demand, we easily fall into different challenge, either out of stock. Some of the product have the spike demand 10 times from beginning of the year to end of the year. But for in some case, some product lose the traction in the market very soon. So it's become very challenging for the supply and demand planning. Local regulation, no doubt. Finding a trustworthy partners or else you get a lot of challenge from order fulfillment, payment, services, customer service or consumer services. So finding a trustworthy trade partner is so important.
Thank you, Hawk. That's definitely a very extensive list of opportunities and challenges for our exporters to think about. Now, before I hand back to Nick, is there any other tips that you want to share with our exporters today?
Sure. 3 things I think on top of my mind. The first one is the demand building versus trade push. Because I have observed several cases that's to launching a new market, because there are so many costs associated with the launch that the brand want to push as much as they can to the channel. So buy more product, buy 100 carton product, you get a 10% off. Buy 200 carton product, you get a 30% off. So it's become a trade push model, and the trade push and the inventory sometimes become a burden for the expansion. So from our case, demand building always comes at the first. So when you think about our model, content creation, offline event, finding the right KOL, KOC, so it's all about the demand building, not just the trade push. So building the demand through a digital way and become a first step rather than pushing the stock inventory into the customer. And then the second thing is the whole organization must be built on the very we need to have a robust agility because of the channel and the consumer are changing very fast because of the demand change very fast. And the third thing is the test and learn. It will be a no optimal solution, ideal solution for different business. So do it from today, and then you will learn and you will continue to improve.
Thank you so much, Hawk. You've really provided us a lot of valuable and good tips here. Now I will hand back to Nick.
Thanks to you both. What a great discussion. I know the audience will have really found some value there. They always do tell us, our exporters, that they like to hear directly from another business or someone that's got some hands-on experience. So look, it was really great, Hawk, that you could join us today. While you've been chatting, there's certainly been some good questions coming through. So while I've got you both, I'm going to take the chance to give you a chance to answer some of those questions. Jack, I'll go to you first. Over the next 10 years, how do you see trading partner nations increasing their uptake of digital trade?
Thank you, Nick. That's a really good question. I think both Hawk and I has mentioned that definitely there will be a strong growth of e-commerce. However, if you think number-wise, I believe reported by eMarketer, in the next year, there will be 140 million more people shopping online, which partly is due to the COVID-19 situation. So definitely our partner nations will be more, will take up more e-commerce sales. And I think showed by Hawk's presentation as well. If you look at some of the Southeast Asia markets, such as Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, all of them have more than 20% growth in the next 4 or 5 years. So definitely, I think there will be a lot of more uptakes of e-commerce trades with our partner trade nations.
Great, thanks, Jack. Hawk, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. Besides the macro growth of the e-commerce, I think Southeast Asia have a higher potential because of two reasons. The first one is all the free trade zone, all the government agreement already have a good infrastructure. On the other side, Australia brand do carry a natural benefit in those countries because of the close population movement across the region, and also because of the Australia national brand, the halo effect.
Terrific. Hawk, while I've got you, I've got one for you. How does social media fit into the picture with business expansion through the online channels?
Yeah. So social media is not only a channel to build a brand, it's the channel to sell the product. So when you build a demand, the traditional investment model, you need to invest 1 million, 2 million in the TV advertising, outdoor advertising, or putting a video on demand, in different video platform. But social media is the channel that's you don't need to invest huge in the media. You rather invest in the content, in the KOL, KOC, build a connection with the consumer, build a word of mouth, do the consumer engagement, KOC engagement. I think it's much more complex than just the media buy. Just talk about the impression, reach, those are key indication. It's more about the word of mouth and the engagement. So once you leverage the social media, it's not only to build your brand, but also you can get the benefit of the sales because all the links drive directly to your website. So in the whole social e-commerce, social media ecosystem, it includes your own media, your official accounts, and you also get the earned media, pay media benefit, especially on the earned media side. That is with the great content and the KOL, KOC engagement, that earned media will create the traffic to your sales, and also that traffic is very trustworthy because it's also this is the word of mouth.
Wonderful, thanks, Hawk. Jack, I've got another one for you. How do you figure out which platform or distributor most suitable for your product and the market you're targeting?
Sure, thanks, Nick. That's a great question again. I think from Nick's China experiences, you can see with China alone, you have so many different platforms or channels that you can sell your product with. I think for me, again, one of the advantage of e-commerce is you can do a lot of online research yourself to start with. And also for me, some of the important points about choosing your channels includes the existing traffics. So, you can look at platforms or marketplaces, go to the rakuten.co.jp in Japan, lazada.sg in Singapore. Look at your competitors, look at their pricing, look at their sales volume last month. Some of the marketplaces do show that, to give you a benchmark to see whether your product is in demand in that market, or that particular channel it's actually strong in your categories. Because apart from the traffic, different marketplaces may have different focus in different categories. So be sure that you look at the specific marketplaces and understand that they are strong in your product categories. One last thing is you also need to look at the business model with the marketplaces or channels of your choice. As Hawk has mentioned, different marketplaces have different setup fees, setup procedures, and also policies that you need to obey when you're selling on their platforms. And all of the marketplaces have their seller center, which they will have a lot of information on what's required, what documents, what certificates you need, and what's the setup cost. Rate those and understand how to set up in those marketplaces, and make sure that you follow the policies and then understand exactly how much investment you need to make before making your final choice.
Terrific. Thanks, Jack. Look, we're almost out of time, but maybe before we wrap it up, maybe 20 seconds each, can you give us one final tip? Hawk, I'll go to you.
Yep, sure. My tips is do it from today. Don't wait.
Terrific. Jack?
Thanks. That's a really good tip, Hawk. I think the pandemic does cause a lot of damage. You understand that. But to me, I think it also created a lot of opportunities. And I think e-commerce is one of those opportunities. And I do really encourage our exporters to think outside the box and be creative and innovative on their sales channel or sales methods. And also, most importantly, you are not doing it alone. Both DFAT and Austrade are trying our best to help you as much as we can. If you don't know where to start, you can simply start with the austrade.gov.au e-commerce site, where we can provide you some of the information to help you start your strategy. Thank you, Nick.
Magnificent. Look, thanks to you both. Look, we're coming to the end of our session. Thank you very much. We're coming to the end of our session, but before I go, I want to give a big thanks to all of our speakers. So a virtual round of applause to you all. Muted, but I'm sure you're all applauding. And I'd also like to thank the audience for all your questions. I know we didn't get a chance to answer all of them, and we can understand that can be frustrating for participants, but we've certainly heard you. So we're taking all of your questions from the series and building some frequently asked questions pages. So shortly you'll be able to go to Austrade's FTA website and you'll find those answers to the questions you've put forward. We'll send out a link when it's ready. Also, if there's any topics you really want to hear about in the future, then please include those in the comments in the survey. It's accessible on your screen now, so now's your chance to have a say. We'd really love to get your feedback. It just takes 30 seconds to fill it out, so please fill that out before leaving the call today. Our next webinar is on the 16th of September, and it will be about disrupted supply chains and changing consumer behaviours. Now, of course, you'd all well know this is a very hot topic for exporters in these current times, so don't miss out on that. A link to register for that will be available shortly. So we look forward to seeing you there. So for now, thank you very much and goodbye from me.